UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Bleav Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles, and welcome back to another special edition of the Bleav In LA Football podcast. Always on the Bleav Podcast Network, always everywhere you listen to podcasts, always on LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for Los Angeles football. It's the preview show. 4 games go to battle this weekend, hopefully, COVID permitting. So we'll get to that. This show, as always, is brought to you by our friends at betonline.ag. Plenty of fun stuff to bet on. NBA draft just happened last night. So now you got a bunch of NBA stuff going on as that season kicks off here in a month. That's crazy. Obviously, NFL going on, college football back. So head to betonline.ag today. Great sign-up bonuses if you're not already on there. That's betonline.ag. Tell them your friends sent you. Speaking of friends, joined as always by the great one, Ice Cold Frostee Rucker. What's up, man?
The great one. I love it. I love the ice cold. That's a throwback Thursday for us. I'm good. What up, LA? Ryan? What is happening?
Yeah, I had to steal. I'd say you call yourself Ice Cold. I know I'm sure you played, but on the Take Back the West podcast, I'm like, I got to steal that. That's a fantastic nickname.
That was me, man. Ice cold. Just on the field, though.
Yeah, and the name. So Frostee. So it's like too perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah. How's your weekend shaping up? How's the day going?
Everything's good. Just excited about our show. Got good guests. Good conversation about our 4 teams here as they battle this weekend, and we have nothing but excitement ahead of us.
Yeah, right. So went 3-1 last weekend. We're hoping for a 4-0 this weekend. I think we will fare better in the Chargers department and maybe fare a little worse in the Bruins department, which we'll get to. Just quickly stating the matchups: Chargers face the Jets, the winless Jets. Rams face the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. Bruins get to play the 11th ranked Oregon Ducks. So as mentioned, that's going to be a tough one. We'll get to that later on in the show. And our Trojans hopefully face a Utah Ute team that is still undefeated, but still hasn't played. So it'll be an interesting game to talk about. So, Frostee, first we're going to get into a great interview. A guest has been on the show. I think it's your first time meeting him. His name's Fernando Ramirez, writes for Sports Illustrated, covering the Chargers. This interview, as always, is brought to you by Golden Road Brewery, our friends, the great local brewery. Great 5 locations. You can order beer right on LAFBnetwork.com. Go to the LAFB locker room, pick up a bolt-up golden ale, and once we get to the Rams segment, go ahead and pick up a Who's House blonde ale. So, Frostee, you've been digging the beers, right? You've been liking them.
I actually do like them, man. I am a beer drinker, more of a Coors Light type of guy. C-Light, as they like to call it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this stuff's good. It's tasty, and it's on our website. So go log in, get some beer, and kick back, and Sunday drink a beer with us because we're also on Collide.
That's right. Yeah, I want to chat with you guys and drink some Golden Road, so let's make it happen. All right, Frost, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this Chargers talk with Fernando Ramirez. All right, Chargers fans, you know him well. He's been on the show before. Fernando Ramirez covers the Chargers for Sports Illustrated, is kind enough to bless us with his presence yet again with a weird media schedule in what is now the new NFL. Fernando, my man, what's going on, brother?
Hey, thank you for having me on. Yeah, no, it's definitely weird. You know what? I'm one of the few people that likes daylight savings time. Before, Charger schedules around 11 o'clock. You don't end till 12 o'clock, and you don't end till about 1. So I get all that traffic coming back down to San Diego. Now it's at 10 a.m. Beautiful. I drive back down, no traffic. So I'm loving it, honestly.
That
There you
sounds
go. Yeah, love it. Yeah, anytime you can avoid traffic is good. So, well, Fernando, Frost, I'll start the question off because Frosty and I, we only ask the hard-hitting questions. We only ask
nothing but
nothing but the best. So I'm going to start with this. Justin Herbert's haircut. What's up with the haircut that lit Twitter on fire yesterday?
You know what's funny is that I was sitting next to Gilbert Manzano, who covers the team for the Orange County Register, and we both look at each other and we're like, whoa, like what happened? Like you're just used to the locks and everything, and you're used to him.
Yeah, it's like Samson.
I mean, yeah, no, exactly. So like we looked at him and we're like, oh wow, like it looked like a crew cut, like something military-esque. So we started asking him about haircuts and stuff, and he's like, "Oh no, the strength and conditioning coach John Lott gave it to me."
Oh.
And he's like, "And I thought he did a good job. I wasn't trying to go for something fancy." And I'm like, "Oh wow, okay. I mean, hey, that's
right there. To trust John Lott, the notorious guy, is like
he said that he was good with clippers, so that he trusted him." And I'm like, "Oh wow," but yeah, everybody. I mean, some people were having fun with it in the sense of. Some Dolphins people were like, "Oh, this is what happens after facing the Dolphins defense." I'm like, "Oh, you guys are giving that a little too much credit." And then other people were comparing him to Anakin, the young Anakin Skywalker from the Phantom Menace.
I also saw Sid from Toy Story.
I saw Buzz from Home Alone, Kevin McAllister's brother. Somebody said, "Wow, if Justin Herbert wins Rookie of the Year, are they sure they want to give it to a 14-year-old boy?" And there was a lot of fun being had with this stuff. So honestly, people loved it. I mean, I guess it was a slow Wednesday for the NFL, and they really didn't have a lot going on because the NBA had the NBA draft. So it was the NBA draft going up against Justin Herbert's hair. So there you go. That's just that was just it was a fun Wednesday, to be honest. And when I was writing the article, I was just laughing because, I mean, I was I'm like talking about hair and everything. And I mean, I'm a hair enthusiast. Right now I have a hat on, but I really love my hair. Deion Sanders shot me some love at the Super Bowl, saying that my genetics were off the chain. So I loved every aspect of getting to talk about hair in an article.
You get that nice Latin flow. So
yeah, exactly. Gilbert Manzano thinks that he has the best one, but nah. He needs to get out of here with that one. I think out of all Chargers media, I think I deserve a little bit of love when it comes to that one.
You heard it here. Fernando Ramirez, the best hair in Chargers history.
There you go. I love it.
On the beat. I think the only person I would trust less than Lott to give me a haircut is Mark Davis.
Now people say that John Gruden is Chucky. I think it might be Mark Davis.
Frostee, would you let Mark? I mean, you played up there. Would you let him give you a haircut for a paycheck?
Never said anything about his haircut. He was cutting the checks. I rather him cut the checks and cut his hair. Right?
Smart man.
I'm mad at that. I still want to be invited back and get the VIP treatment. So
smart man.
Yep, very smart. Very smart. Fernando, I got a question for you. Yeah. What's the temperament around the Chargers facility and the players? Me and Ryan sit here and we converse all the time about how they probably should be feeling. Are they still light-spirited despite their record because they are in the majority of these games? How are they feeling?
So there's the aspect of they know they're in these games. They've gone up against Tom Brady's Bucks. They were up on them. They were up on Drew Brees' Saints. They were up on the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are 3 Super Bowl contenders right there, and they had a big lead on them. It was just it just all spiraled out of control. And I mean, they understand that they have injuries. It seems like a regular thing. Derwin James is out. If Derwin James is in, do they win all 3 of those games? I think so. I think that's how big of a difference Derwin makes. Just things having gone their way this season, and it feels like in 2000 it looks like we're far removed. I mean, obviously in the year that we're in 2020, it feels like we're far removed from 2018 when they were 12-4. They were winning. They were 6-1 in those close games, and then this year it's just they haven't been able to close out. The game against Denver, you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe they're starting to get their mojo back off of the bye week or off of the win against Jacksonville. Here it goes. And then Joey Bosa goes out with a concussion injury, and then boom, it all unravels out of there. It seems like it's at times the defense gets passive, and they're like, okay, well, we have a big lead. The offense kind of shuts down a little bit, and they're like, okay, we're good. And then, oh, my God, we got to get the car jump-started again. That's not how it works in the NFL, and these guys know that. Keenan Allen was very honest on Monday, and he told us, we need to do better. We need to close this out. People are asking, like, what do you guys have to play for? Right now, they have the 5th overall pick. They're sitting in a good spot. I mean, when it comes to the draft, obviously the draft is a far ways away, but they're sitting in a good place with the draft. Yeah, exactly. I don't think – I mean, they've done weird stuff before. I just do not think they can catch any of these wild card teams. I think those guys are way up here, and the Chargers are kind of down here. Even with getting Joey back, getting Trey Turner back, getting some of these Austin Eckler back, I just don't feel like they could get in at 9-7 the way the Colts are playing, the way the Dolphins, the Bills, all these teams, their demeanor is good. That you can tell that the players are they know that they still have to fight for something because, hey, you could be out of a job next year and everything like that. Last year when they were going through this, I remember Melvin Ingram told me, if people don't want to be in this locker room fighting, then they need to get out, and we need to weed those guys out. We can't have any negativity like that. Keenan Allen said that. Joey Bosa said that today to us, that these guys need to make plays, that they're not making those game-changing plays that they have in the past. So all in all, I feel like the locker room is good. Their mentality is good. You haven't seen anything there's question marks, but you haven't seen anything that really makes you think, oh, these guys have completely lost the locker room or anything like that. I don't get any sense of that. I feel like there are being questioned. They're starting to ask questions, the players are. But as of right now, I feel like Anthony Lynn still has control of this locker room.
That's good. I'm a big Anthony Lynn fan, as Ryan can contest with that one. I've stood on the table a million times and just keep saying, he needs time. He's paired with Justin Herbert and got a brand new quarterback. He needs time to mold. Ryan says the same thing. We like his style, and the fact that they're in these games makes us sleep well at night, right, Ryan? The fact that they're actually being competitive and not getting blown out, makes me feel good. But, I've been on teams that don't perform, and as good of a locker room there is, the attitude of the team doesn't consult in victories. Yeah. And it's a hard thing to swallow when you're in the locker room because you can't scratch your head on what it is. Yeah. But the one thing, if they're, they're not questioning each other and they're just, doubling down on, hey, you better fight until the end of this because you got to put it on tape because free agency's next year if you want a job or if you want to be on this team. It's about how you work. So I'm glad that you're sitting here saying these guys are still committed and still going to work every day with high energy, and they get some of these guys back, right, Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. Chris Harris Jr., another guy that hopefully is coming back here soon. Austin Eckler designated, I believe. So that'll be a huge boost. Fernando Frostee and I have basically been banging the table for Anthony Lynn, just saying everyone needs to hold their horses, that he needs to get a lot of credit for how well Justin Herbert's been. Everyone wants to talk about him Rookie of the Year. That may not happen without a head coach like Anthony Lynn. Obviously, a lot of credit to Shane Steichen and Pep Hamilton, who Anthony Lynn brought in Pep Hamilton, that is. But it's a perfect segue because now the Chargers go to play an 0-8 Jets team. Similar situation as far as record. I think it's safe to say Adam Gase will not be the coach of the Jets after this season. And I think
happened.
Yeah, you're very right about that. But I think, and this is my opinion and my question for you, I think this Jets team is one that you see, and we're not close to the team or anything. It's just watching what we see on TV. But it seems like they're a team that not necessarily isn't competing, but we can tell that they've kind of moved on from their coach in a sense. There's just not a good vibe. Where, in my opinion, this Chargers team is not that way. They lose close games, but they still seem to be fighting for Lynn. They like their coach. It's still a collective unit that they can build upon. Is that your sense? And then transitioning into the Jets game, is this a game that the Chargers only having 2 wins more, but are a much better team?
No, yeah. The Chargers, on paper, this looks like the Chargers should blow them out completely. I think I just saw today that one of their beat writers for ESPN put that they put a lot of guys on IR from the secondary. And he put, could it be a big day for Justin Herbert on Sunday? Because, if you give Herbert time back there, he'll sling it. So, these look like two franchises that are headed in different ways. I know the record is almost similar, but the Chargers have the players. They have the talent. They're going to get Drew Tranquill back next year. They're going to get Derwin James back. The Chargers have a bright future, especially if they can hone in on this. Now, the thing is that next year, we're all hoping, knock on wood, that fans will be allowed back in the stadium and everything. That's going to be a huge question mark because fans are banging at the door. And they're saying, we want Anthony Lynn out. We want Gus Bradley out. We want George Stewart out. Basically, they want everybody. The only person that I've seen that they want still there is James Campen, the offensive line coach, and Pep Hamilton, and even Shane Steichen has gotten a couple of thumbs up. But, obviously, I don't work in the front office, so I don't know what the Chargers are thinking. But from everything I've heard and from the people that I've talked to, they think that Anthony's done a great job, that he's done and I remember at the beginning, people were angry because he didn't just outright name Justin Herbert the starter. He let Justin get comfortable. You don't want to put all that pressure on a rookie quarterback who didn't have an offseason program. He had to do everything via Zoom. So, I mean, it's tough to bring in a quarterback and say, okay, you're in there, you're the starter.
Right.
Obviously, Tyrod went out with what he had. He had some stuff going on with the medical team, and now Justin was a starter. Justin's done a great job, like you said. Pep, Shane, and even Anthony deserves credit for that. I mean, is there some games where they're a little bit passive? Yes, but that's because they're still trying to develop the kid. The kid is still learning. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the Dolphins game on Sunday, but there was times where Justin was surprised by what he was getting. The Dolphins were going cover zero. They were showing cover zero, and then they'd end up, as soon as the ball was snapped, they would go to cover 3. So, I mean, they were getting very I'm not saying that they were getting confused. Keenan Allen said that he felt like the offense was confused on Sunday. But I feel like the Chargers are in a good place going into this game. I know sometimes we say that every single week and something happens, but you're getting Joey Bosa back. You have Trey Turner back, who wasn't on the injury report yesterday for the first time in a long time. Brian Bulaga, you're relatively healthy going into this game, and I feel like they do have a point to prove. I do feel like they think that they are a very good team, that they're a team that can upset. I feel like the rest of the season they might just play upset going into the back end of the season, because that last game against Kansas City is going to be crucial, especially with the Steelers and the Chiefs only being one game away. So, I mean, the rest of the way, the Chargers are going to basically play spoiler. They're going to play, like Keenan Allen said, we're going to play for the name, or Justin Herbert said, we're going to play for the name on the back and the bolt on the helmet. Like, we got to still keep on doing this. And honestly, I think, and people are going to say draft picks this, draft picks that. They need to play for pride. I mean, you need to play also for Justin Herbert. You need to show Justin Herbert that you can win these games. You don't want him going into the offseason being like, oh, my God, we should have won this. We should have done this. We should have done that. If he says, we had a bad first half of the season, but we ended up coming back in the second half and we ended up putting this up, that's positive going into the offseason. So the Chargers still do have a lot to play for, but it is going to be a tough road, especially with some of the games that they have coming up. But, yeah, no, definitely when you look at the Jets and you look at the Chargers, they definitely are two teams heading in a different direction. These guys are headed for Trevor Lawrence, and the Chargers are headed for, hopefully, I mean, if they keep on building the way they look like they've been building, hopefully next year competing for the AFC West.
I just like it that their attitude's in the right spot, and they do have a young, talented team, and guys are going to be coming back from being injured. And I'm high on this team. Fernando, I started this not really knowing too much about the team. I just retired a year ago, and this is the first time I'm diving into getting this roster down and understanding these players. They have a lot of talent on that roster, and again, to double down on what I said, I think Anthony Lynn needs to be there to see this thing work. He has to be there to see it through, because once the injury side's on their side of the ball and the magic happens and the ball rolls their way and they're on the collecting side of getting interceptions and stopping the games, this whole thing is going to be turned around, and he should be one of the people that get the thanks for it.
My opinion is, Frostee, I feel like in today's age, we're so impatient. We're very impatient with everything. We're impatient with lines. Guilty as charged. I hate lines. We're impatient with what were we going to say?
No, I agree.
Yeah. We're impatient with if our Wi-Fi isn't working, we're very impatient. I mean, we're impatient. And that's the problem, I think. Let's look at the two situations. Adam Gase, you can tell you saw what Jamal Adams has been saying all this week about how he was depressed on the team, that he doesn't feel like they're a winner. He's been saying a lot of things about the way the Jets are headed. And the Chargers, you don't see that stuff coming out. You don't see – Desmond King hasn't said anything. Yeah. And Desmond King was traded to the Titans. He hasn't said anything about – I mean, he said some things on Twitter about his play time, but he hasn't said anything about the Chargers organization, none of that. So, and I mean, obviously Desmond's a high-character guy, but he hasn't said anything about the Chargers organization. Phillip Rivers hasn't really said anything about them since he left. So, I mean, they have to be patient with it, and I feel like fans really need to be patient when it comes to with Anthony Lynn. I mean, to be honest, this franchise is lucky, Frostee. I mean, you go from Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers to now Justin Herbert. Like, look at the Jets. The Jets are still finding their guy for since Joe Namath. They're still trying to find their guy. The Dolphins are still trying to find their guy after Marino, and it looks like they found it in Tua. But there are franchises that go years without finding their franchise quarterback. And these guys just nailed it with 3 guys in a row. I mean, that's honestly, I mean, obviously it's great scouting, but that's just, in a sense, it's luck too. So, I mean, honestly, the franchise is headed in the right direction. They just need to shift their mentality a little bit. You have to take risks when it comes to the draft, free agents. I mean, yeah, maybe that player coming in, maybe he has a couple of question marks, but hey, sometimes those question marks end up hitting, and you end up getting those playoff caliber players that obviously that can change the game and change the Patriots always seem to make a move right before the trade deadline that ends up hitting for them, and they ended up making it to the Super Bowl. They got Stephon Gilmore. They've gotten Darrelle Revis. They've gotten big-time guys like that, and I feel like the Chargers are still missing that kind of play. I mean, if the Chargers had Jaylen Ramsey or one of those kind of game-changing guys, yeah, they like to talk. Okay, but the talent overlaps exactly what their question marks are. And if you had a guy like Jaylen Ramsey mixed in with a Derwin James and mixed in with a Joey Bosa, wow, like you'd have a shutdown defense. So I mean, that's the only thing I'd preach to the Chargers. It's okay to take risks. It's okay to take risks in life.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, take a risk, and okay, it didn't pay out. Okay, but you learn. You learn to take a risk. You learn to jump in the pool 25 minutes after you ate something. I mean, just take some of those risks. Just go in and jump head first into the pool.
So do you think the organization needs to not listen to the outside pressure of what these fans are saying, or they do? The fans pay the bills. Do you listen, or do you focus and double down on just being aggressive and making moves that you know that can become a winner? Because that's what kind of seems like, you start worrying about what the outside's saying, who's saying this, these message boards, and they start writing under the players' comments or on their websites.
Yeah.
Focus on the Chargers, get this down, and don't worry about anything else, and just be aggressive.
Frostee, quick question. Do you guys have exit interviews after the season?
We do.
Okay. So if I was the Chargers, there's 3 people that you really need, or 3 things that you really need to listen to. Yes, the fans. I mean, you always have to include the fans in everything. You have to listen to the fans. But the players is going to be the crucial part. If I was them, I would actually ask the players, moving forward, what their opinion is about the coaching staff. Do you feel confident in the coaching staff? The third is ownership. I think ownership needs to start asking questions about not only the head coach, but the general manager. Is this our best thing moving forward? In all 3 phases, I feel like the Chargers need to ask those questions, just because, I mean, you have the play. You brought in Chris Harris Jr., Super Bowl champion. Trey Turner, he's been to the Super Bowl. He's a Pro Bowler. You brought in Brian Bulaga, Super Bowl champion, Pro Bowler. You brought in Linval Joseph, Super Bowl champion, Pro Bowler. You're bringing in the right guys, but the thing is, you still need that, like we were talking about right now. You need to be able to take those risks if you want to get somewhere. And I feel like that's what's missing with this team. I feel like in 2018, if they would have taken a risk, that was the year I believe Jaylen Ramsey wanted to trade. If you end up taking a risk, something like that, I mean, you never know. Like you could have ended up changing your fortune. So I feel like the Chargers need to ask these questions. I do think that they need to focus on themselves and kind of have horse blinders when it goes into the offseason. But at a time, you do need to listen to what the players and what everybody is kind of saying. If the players feel like Anthony Lynn is their coach and they love their coach and they're going to fight for their coach, all right, go ahead and go through it. If not, I mean, you need to find a coach that you feel like could take you into the future of your team. I mean, is Eric Bieniemy a guy? Do you want to go to the college ranks? I mean, you have to find out who's going to be the best coach for your team. And if it's Anthony Lynn, okay, but make sure you're sure about that result. Don't go in and say, oh, well, we thought it would because he had 1 year left on his contract, it'd be good to bring him back. No. Be sure this is our head coach. We want him. This is who we believe. The thing is, the Chargers can't let Anthony Lynn they can't leave him high and dry in the sense of just say, oh, yeah, this is our head coach. No, this is our head coach because. And I feel like some teams don't do that when it comes to their head coach, and they kind of leave them high and dry a little bit. And I feel like with Anthony, you have to say, this is our coach because, and put it out there. I mean, don't be scared of the fans. I mean, you have to – this is your organization. You have to do what's best for your guys and for your players. And if that means retaining Anthony Lynn, then be sure that that is your decision and that you're okay with that moving forward.
And this is just wild because it sounds like a conversation. I'm a USC alum. It sounds like a conversation at USC. The kids stand on the table for Clay Helton, and then the fans are just keep ripping them. But it's like, what do you do in that, that situation? Do you listen to the players? Because you're saying the players need to speak up, say who they want. If they're going to stand by them, stand by them. It's just there's so much that goes into that head coach position. Being the facilitator for all the other coaches. And obviously when you lose, it all comes on you. He's put so much, it seems like so much ability in his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators to do their jobs. And then he gets the end of the stick on it. Offense is playing great, but then you got Gus Bradley, which is a known great defensive coordinator that coached the Legion of Doom and all that in Seattle. And it's just not working out right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think if your record ends up being 3-13, 4-12, you are going to need to make some changes. If you're going to bring back Anthony Lynn, okay, bring him back. But I think you are going to have to make a move, either a defensive coordinator, special team, something, because both of those areas have kind of cost you games this season. The defense at times, and it's funny because you talk about it. The defense for one quarter will miss tackles, drop interceptions. They'll just play terrible football. Against the Broncos, for 3 quarters, they held them down. In the fourth quarter, they gave up 21 points and couldn't hold them down anymore. So,
players or coach?
Exactly. So, is it the talent? Is it the coaches? I feel like if they end up with a 5th pick or the 6th pick overall, you're going to have to fire somebody from you're going to need to fire somebody. Like I said, if you're going to keep Anthony Lynn, you're going to need to let Gus go. You're going to need to let special teams go and kind of revamp it that way or do something, because you can't just sit at 4-12 and the fan base is going to be angry if you just retain everybody. Somebody's going to have to go, and that's the unfortunate part about it. But, if you're a talented team and you're in these games the way you have been, you guys end up just giving those games up. Somebody has to go, and obviously they're going to have to make some tough decisions. There's a lot of decisions that these guys are going to have to make. The secondary has not been the best this year. Casey Hayward has not played at a Pro Bowl level like we're used to seeing. Is Patrick Surtain Jr. a guy that you like from Alabama, cornerback? I can never say his name, the left tackle out of Oregon.
Penei
Sewell, thank you. He's a guy that if they could get him mixed in with Brian Bulaga and Trey Turner, then wow, you have a great offensive line moving forward. And Justin's familiar with him because they both went to Oregon. So, or do you want to is Melvin Ingram not in your plans for the future, and you're not going to re-sign him, and you want to bring in a younger defensive end to mix in with Joey Bosa? That's 3 questions right there that you have with 1 pick. So there's a lot of questions that are starting to get asked about the offseason. And that's the problem. We look at the offseason now because of their record. They're 2-7, and it feels like, okay, now in the offseason, who's a free agent? Who's this? Who's that? So that's the beautiful thing about football. 24/7, 365. It never ends, truly.
Never ends. Frostee, it's crazy you brought it up how eerily similar the Chargers and Trojans, at least coaching-wise, are, because we thought at the end of last year it was a but fans thought it was a slam dunk. Urban Meyer was coming in. Mike Bones decides, nope, I'm going to keep Clay Helton, but you need to make changes. And what does he do? He gets a new defensive coordinator, new special teams coach. And I think Frostee, we're in the same. Unless the Chargers are to lose out, I do think Anthony Lynn will be back at least a year. But I do agree with you as well, Fernando, that we'll see a change up for sure at D coordinator and special teams. And then it's like, okay, you prove that you can do it on offense. You proved how you could, build up Justin Herbert. Now we've given you the keys to continue on. Now prove that you're the true head coach that can make this organization a winning organization. And then hopefully he'll get those guys and they can do that. So fascinating to watch. They're in a tough spot, but I think they can do it. I do want to say one thing about the Jets game, or ask you one thing about the Jets game. I found this funny. They faced their 4th Super Bowl MVP quarterback, but it is Joe Flacco, who probably isn't playing like a Super Bowl MVP, but he is the 4th one they play. And I wanted to bring up Melvin Ingram. He's one of my favorite players on the Chargers. Just seems like an awesome guy, awesome career. He's been an awesome Charger. This year, though, he has struggled a little bit. do you have anything that you've seen why that is? Is it just guys keying up on him, or I know Bosa's been out, but Uchenna is a very good compliment as well. I mean, it's got a little odd seeing Ingram struggle kind of like he has, at least getting to the quarterback.
Going back to the Flacco thing, I feel like he doesn't get a lot of love that he deserves. I mean, that Super Bowl, wow. Yeah. Like, the way that playoff run he had was incredible. And when he got paid, I was like, dude, he deserves to get paid. I mean, yeah, he's not Tom Brady, he's not Peyton Manning, but I think he had a better run to the Super Bowl that year than any of those quarterbacks have potentially had. I mean, he threw 12 touchdowns, 0 picks. He was literally perfect that whole playoff run. But yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting game. Flacco's been slinging it. I remember I watched the Jets,
Patriots,
Patriots game, and he was throwing it down the field. He has a strong arm still. He beat the Chargers last year when he was a member of the Denver Broncos. So. And when you talk to some of the players, they still remember that game. So definitely they know he's the guy they need to watch out for. The funny part is that I was asking myself last night when I was writing something up, I'm like, would they rather face Sam Darnold or Joe Flacco? And that's an honest question. I mean, who would they rather face? I mean, especially knowing what Joe Flacco can do and the way he can at times just light a team up, or Sam Darnold, who – last year, his best game was against the Dallas Cowboys after coming back from mono. But the whole Melvin Ingram thing, so we've asked Gus, we've asked Anthony. They both say, and I mean, I have noticed this, that he's helping out in different areas of the game. So he has been helping a lot more in the run game. The game against the Denver Broncos was the first game where Joey and Melvin were together in a game for the first time since the Kansas City and since the beginning of the season, because he had missed those 3 games. And in that game, Melvin was getting into the backfield a lot. The thing is that I have noticed that because of the struggles of the secondary, quarterbacks are getting out, like they're dropping back and quick. They're getting the ball out very quick that's what Teddy Bridgewater did against the Chargers, is he was getting the ball out there quick because he knew that the Chargers pass rush was going to get to him if he held the ball for longer than 4 seconds. Or 3 seconds. So a lot of these quarterbacks are getting the ball out quickly. But I have noticed that Melvin has not had a sack this whole season. Maybe that changes this Sunday against the Jets. But, yeah, no, that's something that the Chargers really the Chargers are going to look at when it comes to this offseason, just because, I mean, Joey I think has 4.5. So it has been a struggle for the pass rush in general this whole season, just because, like I said, when you talk to them, they say the teams are getting the ball out quickly because they don't want the pass rush to get to them. So definitely that's something that has been noticed. I mean, Melvin did help out a lot against the Raiders when it came to Josh Jacobs. He was making big tackles. I think he had 8 or 9 tackles in that game, and he was going after Jacobs a lot. He was trying to get the running backs down. So definitely he has been helping out in other areas. But, yeah, the game against Miami, the only time I heard his name is when they said, oh, we haven't said his name today, but Melvin Ingram's on this defense. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, no, Melvin hasn't really stood out. But according to the Chargers, he's doing other things. He's helping out in other areas. But, yeah, no, 0 sacks this season isn't a good look, especially with him about to hit free agency next offseason.
Exactly, and that's the part that's troubling for me. He's about to hit free agency, and he's this guy that should be breaking the bank off his prior record before this season has been like just – outstanding the way he plays football.
I don't count pockets, but he's making 14.5, I think, this year. So, I mean, I don't like to count another man's pocket, but that's – and 0 sacks, I mean, it is something that they're going to question.
They're going to have to address it, and it's just unfortunate because, like Ryan said earlier, he has been a great Charger, and he has been one of the faces of the Chargers before Bosa got here. So it's unfortunate. There's seasons like that where you go in like a slump, you get injured, you're finding your way back. Like you said, what's going on behind him, can play a key factor in that. Losing your defensive line coach like they did this year, which you're really comfortable with. Now he's over at the Rams. They're having success with him. There's a lot that plays a factor in it. It's just very unfortunate it's not showing up in the stats because the coaches can say he's doing a good job, he's showing up in these areas, but when they don't re-sign him at the end of the year, it's like, why tell a lie if it wasn't what you wanted? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's unfortunate. He's a great player, and he's been a great Charger.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, he's had game-changing plays before. So it definitely I mean, he has that interception against the Cincinnati Bengals, but other than that, I mean, he really hasn't.
That's the first game of the season.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it hasn't been there for him this season, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with him moving forward after this season, especially if he can't get on a little bit of a roll to end the season out.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll get it rolling this week against the Jets and
2 sacks.
2 sacks. There you go. And Frost, I'm excited to see Uchenna go up against Chuma Edoga, both former Trojans. They'll go hand to hand. If I know the Jets' offensive line has been banged up. So Fernando Ramirez with Sports Illustrated. Let me get you out of here on this. Do the Chargers win? Do they get to 3 wins against a winless Jets team?
You know, what's funny is that I had been picking them for a couple again, the Saints game, and I think I picked them for the Broncos game, and they did me wrong. So lately I've picked against them, but I think this weekend they do win, and I think it is going to be by more than 1 score. I know most of their games have been 1 score, but I think it's by more than 1 score.
They have they're in the position to do it week in, week out. So you going for them isn't a bad bet. I
just don't like using the B word when it comes to the Chargers, just because I know that they don't know what a blowout is. Either way, they don't get blown. You know, and that's the funny part, as I tell people, is that if you put the Chargers on Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football,
fun team to watch
for a whole year, you're going to have entertaining football no matter what.
Yeah.
So they're one of the most entertaining teams.
Better than like a great team like Buccaneers.
Exactly.
Completely opposite.
Exactly. So the Chargers are entertaining regardless, and they never get blown. Their teams rarely get blown out. They'll get blown out once a season maybe, but rarely do they get blown out. So they're an entertaining team. But, yeah, I see the Chargers winning by 2 touchdowns this weekend.
Okay. Love it. I agree with you. I think Chargers win big.
Man, I'll put this out here right now. Sorry, Ryan. I'll put this out here right now. There's a defensive line coach out there, Preston Buckner. He's a defensive line coach for the Arizona Cardinals. I played under him. He's a great football mind. And like you said, they need to be aggressive and do something that maybe not everyone understands. But I'm telling you, this guy can draw up zone blitzes, pressures, get your front right, and he should be up for a defense coordinator position. And it's time to go against the grain a little bit and not keep recycling these old names and, you know, your buddy's buddy that can do it.
Somebody threw out the name Rex Ryan to me, and I was like, let me shut that down right now. Like,
it's not happening.
No. I'm like, Rex Ryan has a very comfy job over with ESPN. I mean, when John Gruden left, I was very surprised as well. But, yeah, no, definitely I think they need to go against the grain and kind of get a guy that nobody really knows, because those are the guys that usually pan out, those guys that you take a chance on, like the Shane Steichens. Nobody knew who Shane Steichen was, and now he's calling your offense, and he's doing a great job with it. So, hey, why not go out there and get somebody who nobody knows about?
Saying it again. So if it ever happens, I said it, and I'm going to start saying it because he's a great coach, a great football mind. He played. And I'm telling you, the guys rally behind him, and that could be what the Chargers need for.
Yeah, no, and without Chandler Jones, that defensive line is still playing well. So I mean, definitely that's somebody that should get a look if all these positives are happening. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Somebody different is what these guys need.
And bring over Marcus Golden with him. I think that'd be great. Frosty, say his name again for the cheap seats out there.
Who Marcus Golden?
No, our future coordinator with the Chargers.
Coach Brisson Buckner.
There we go, Brisson Buckner.
Faith Before Fame is his Instagram. He's one of the top-notch coaches I've ever had, not just for D-line, but I'm telling you, he can game plan, he does it, and he's due.
Love it. I think that's a great – he's a guy I've had circled too, so I think that's – I totally agree with you. Look at Brandon Staley just across the way with the Rams, unknown guy.
Ryan's capping over here. I think he just wrote that name down since you said it. I don't know if he knew that name before.
He's capping?
Don't do me dirty like that. Soon as Frosty joined me, I knew all of his old accomplices, so I knew it.
There you go. No, I'm just messing with you, Ryan.
That's fair, though. Fernando, man, pleasure as always, dude. Thanks for jumping on and chatting with us, and let's hope next time we have you on, we have some more positives to talk about.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your guys' time.
Thanks, Fernando.
All right, big thanks to Fernando. I always love having him on. He actually, I didn't say this, but he went to my alma mater, same college. We didn't know each other in college, but I saw him at training camp one day, and I was like, I feel like I saw you around campus. Did you go to Long Beach State? And he's like, yeah. So kind of fun.
Cool. Small
Random.
world.
Yeah. Small world. Never knew each other. But so yeah, big thanks to him. I think you said you think the Chargers are going to win too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we all hopefully, if you don't beat the winless Jets, then maybe we do have a coaching problem. But I don't think I still think we're behind Lynn. I'm glad we're in unison on that because I don't know. I love him as a integrity guy, and I think he deserves. I know this is his 4th season, but I think with all the changes they've made, you got to stick with him a little longer. So we'll see. It starts on Sunday. Got to beat this Jets team. Yeah. All right. So now for our Rams segment. I actually jumped on a Buccaneers podcast with a couple guys that they're on the Bleav Network as well. So I jumped on with them so we could preview the game. So I'm going to go ahead and double dip and use that for our Rams segment. It was a good conversation. So Frost, I'll go ahead and cue that up and we'll chat a little bit afterwards. So here's my conversation for Rams Buccaneers.
Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my friend? Excited to talk Rams with you.
Fellas, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and excited to essentially have you on my show too. We're doing this as like a cross pod, and something I swear this wasn't planned. Something super funny, and we never announce our show numbers, what episode we're on. But this is our episode 147 as well. Super ironic. So
I was going to bring that up. I was checking out your guys' podcast feed before the show, getting to listen to how you do it, and I had noticed that we were on the same exact episode. So I think that's hilarious, dude. What a coincidence.
Yeah, crazy. Meant to be.
Absolutely. So taking a look at this Rams team. Monday Night Football in Tampa Bay. You know, the Rams are one of those teams making some noise in the NFC. They are, I believe, tied for first in their division right now, which is a very strong division. But I just think they're one of those teams that isn't getting enough credit right now. Like, they absolutely took it to Seattle last week. And they are 6-3 in a tough division that's still wide open. And I don't know how Evan feels, but as far as I am concerned, they are playing way above the expectations I had at the beginning of the season.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. They're playing above their expectations because after some of the losses they had in free agency, really bringing no one in other than, a couple guys, Ashawn Robinson, Leonard Floyd. And then they had no first-round picks, so, kind of stacked up there in the second round. But, the expectations were, 9-7 last year. They could maybe go 9-7 again, 10-6. With how good of a division, I don't think anyone expected them to be at where they're at right now, tied and in contention and really a contender, in my opinion. And the reason why they're a contender is this defense that's I think what's exceeded really everyone's expectations is, you fire Wade Phillips, you bring in relatively unknown Brandon Staley, who's a first-time ever defensive coordinator, and implementing a new defense with a lot of young guys. They lost, some key starters in Dante Fowler and Corey Littleton and didn't really replace him. Obviously, I mentioned Leonard Floyd, but did nothing at middle linebacker. And they're playing lights out. So I think we'll get into it, obviously, throughout this entire thing, but I think this team is built for the long haul because of the defense, and the offense has been kind of up and down, suspect at times, but considering that's Sean McVay's bread and butter, I think they'll get it figured out at the right time and get everything rolling when they need to. So the fact that the defense is playing so well, that's why I think they're built for this long-term success.
Yeah, well, when I looked at the Rams, I looked at a lot of things you said. They lost a lot of guys. It just seemed like they were losing guys left and right. And, they really went for it in those few years when they tried and they got to the Super Bowl and they lost. That's when, they're getting Ramsey and they were in on all these big free agents and all these trade rumors. And then they just came up short. And then that's the price you have to pay where you have to let some guys go that you just can't afford. But now, I agree with you on the defense. And I think the big thing is Jaylen Ramsey is like Jaylen Ramsey again. Last year he was good, but I don't think he was shutdown level. This year he's just been like one of the best corners in the league. Really starting to show why he's worth a big contract. And I think now he's finally back to form where he hasn't been for the past maybe 2 seasons or so. And like you mentioned, a guy like Leonard Floyd. I was looking at it. I thought Leonard Floyd was always a pretty good pass rusher. I always liked him, but his rookie season, he got 7 sacks in Chicago. the whole season, and now he has 7 sacks with the Rams, and we still got a bunch of games left. So, I mean, this guy has been playing great football. I believe he had 3 sacks alone last week, so those numbers are a little skewed, but I mean, it's still a really solid pass rusher. And of course, when you have a guy like Aaron Donald, who is, I think, probably one of like a top 3 or 2 best football player in the league right now. I just think that the defensive line is just going to eat whoever the opposing offensive line is. And, I mean, that's a big key in how, they've been able to have success. Like you said, the offense has been up and down. I'm not a huge fan of Jared Goff, but, I think the offensive scheme, I think that fits him well. I think that McVay is he's so good at what he does, and their entire offensive staff, and guys like Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, those guys are really good as well. So they've definitely surprised me a little bit. I thought they were going to be maybe that 8-8, 9-7 type team, but I mean, they're right in the thick of things right now.
Now, on the injury report side of things, there's a couple of big headlines coming out of both camps this week. As for the Rams, last week they lost veteran offensive lineman, big left tackle Andrew Whitworth. He suffered a knee injury, and it has landed him on IR. So Ryan shakes things up for that offensive line a little bit, but what does the loss of Whitworth mean for LA?
It's a huge loss, guys. Other than probably Aaron Donald and Jared Goff, it's the biggest loss this team could have. He's an anchor of the offensive line. He's an anchor of the offense, and he's a leader in that locker room and probably the most trusted guy on the team overall, just with his longevity, with his injury really not being injury prone before this, and just his leadership. So it's a huge loss. He was, I think PFF had him ranked 4th overall out of all tackles in the entire NFL. So he's playing at an unbelievable level for his age. And it's, we hope and pray that he gets well soon, and it's not anything that's career-ending. He still does have 2 years left on a contract. But as far as just how they replace him, I mean, there's really no truly replacing him. But Joe Noteboom, a guy they drafted at TCU, they actually slid inside last year to play guard, but they'll bounce him back to tackle to take over. And he looked okay in some relief last week, but he'll have a tough task filling those shoes, because that is just a huge loss for this offense.
Yeah. Now, on the Bucs side of things, another big name on that offensive line, left guard Ali Marpette. Reports came out of practice today from Rick Stroud in the Tampa Bay Times saying that Marpette's still got this general feeling of fogginess, which he's already missed 2 games. It is definitely not an encouraging sign. One would think that with the game being on Monday night, that extra day can give him a little extra time to just recoup, and maybe we see him suit up for prime time, but I don't know, man. Evan, when does this start to become a concern? Because you look at how the Bucs have adjusted. Didn't work against the Saints when they plugged Joe Hagan at left guard. They made some changes against Carolina. A.Q. Shipley played center. Ryan Jensen moved over to left guard, which both of those guys have plenty of experience to do it again. But for Ali Marpette, when does this become a major concern for you?
I mean, it's starting to become a major concern now. You see a lot of guys enter concussion protocol, and they normally only miss maybe 1 game. Now Marpette could potentially miss 3. I mean, that's not great. It really is not. I don't know at what point during the Giants game he ended up getting hurt, or getting concussed, I should say. But yeah, this could potentially be his 3rd missed game, and now you're talking is this concussion really this bad? Chris Godwin had a concussion earlier in the season. He missed 1 game and was back in week 3. Now Ali Marpette, who has been just one of the best guards in the NFL this season, and really a reason why Tom Brady hasn't been sacked a whole lot. It's a huge reason why, actually. And he's going to be likely out again, if I had to guess. Like you did say, with the extra day, maybe he's able to give it a go. I think they're going to wait and see how he feels tomorrow and Saturday after practice. But, I mean, he's still got to pass through protocol, and it's starting to become a concern. Every guy's different with concussions. Everybody, there's different levels of a concussion, and everybody really handles them differently. So in Marpette's case, at this point, you're just hoping it's not anything really long-term. But, I mean, the offense is definitely going to miss him because, like we were talking before the show, Rhett, you can survive with Jensen at guard and Shipley at center when you're going against, the Panthers. But when you're going up against this Rams defensive line headlined by Aaron Donald, it's a little bit of a different story. So that's going to be a huge factor. And, I mean, last year, Marpette was a big factor in shutting down Donald. I don't believe Donald had a sack in last year's game. That was a big storyline coming into that game. And now with Marpette potentially being out, Donald might have a field day. So we'll see. But it would definitely be a huge loss if he can't go.
Well, guys, if I can jump in real quick, for those Rams fans out there listening, he's a huge part of your offensive line. You guys obviously know better than me, but I was on a Bucs show just yesterday, and one of their hosts predicted if Marpette plays, the Bucs win. If he loses, the Rams win. So I think that just shows how important he is to this offensive line, to this offense, to what Tom Brady does. And if he doesn't, I think this Rams defensive line can be great. And like you said, in last year's game, they really weren't effective. I know it was a different quarterback at that time, not Tom Brady yet, but he's just that instrumental, and it'll be a huge game time decision to see if he's out there or not.
Absolutely. So speaking of game time decisions, let's get a little bit more into this game preview itself. So we look at this matchup on Monday night, primetime game, huge playoff implications for both teams. It sets up one of the most critical matchups of the season for both clubs here. The Rams offense, still got Jared Goff, does a pretty good job of spreading the ball out on offense. He's got some really good pass catchers, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Josh Reynolds. They've also got a pretty strong rushing attack despite the departure of Todd Gurley. We talked about the loss of Andrew Whitworth, but that Rams rushing attack, let's talk about it for a minute. They mostly split carries. They've got a trio back there. It's Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and then they've got Cam Akers, who was a second-round pick this last year. It has worked pretty well. They are productive is quite an understatement when you look at the numbers that they put up. 134 yards per game, and I think a little under 5 yards per carry for that Rams rushing attack. But with all that being said, the Rams can get it done on offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people when they think of Sean McVay and his offense, they think of high-powered, high-scoring, 11 personnel, air the ball out, all this and that. But it's really predicated on being well-balanced and rushing the football. And the way they're able to air it out is if they can get that ground game going early and often and keep feeding those guys. And when they drafted Cam Akers, the thought was out here in LA that he was going to be the guy to replace Todd Gurley and take over. And you'd have Hendo would come in and be that kind of change of pace, break the game wide open back, and Malcolm Brown would be your goal line or third and short guy. But Akers would be the lead guy, and that hasn't been the case. He was a little banged up early in the year, but even now that he's healthy, this is still a true running back by committee. But when it comes to winning football games, not fantasy games, you really don't care, right? You just want to get the yards and production, and they've been able to do that. And they come up with a tough matchup this week with this Buccaneers. You guys know have a very good rushing defense, so it's going to be really, really important for Sean McVay and this offense to stick with the run, even if they're not having that 5 yards a clip like you mentioned, Rhett. But if they can, just stay with it, because that opens things up for the passing game. And all Rams fans know, all Rams Nation knows, Jared Goff is a very comparable quarterback. He's very good running this offense, but you don't want your offense going through Goff, because that's not a recipe for success. So they have to stick to this ground game no matter how little they get in the beginning if they want success, because it's worked for them so far. Last thing I'll say, on the only 2 games this year, they've rushed under 30 times a game, and one was last week in Seattle when they ran it for 29 times. And Seattle has a 32nd ranked pass defense, so you would think they'd air it out a little bit more. So just shows how important it is to get over that 30 rushes per game clip, and a main reason why they have been so successful.
Yeah, and I mean, when you talk about that reminds me a lot of like the Bucs situation on offense. The Bucs haven't had the same success like as far as individual running backs go, but I mean, Darrell Henderson, I loved coming out of the draft, and then Cam Akers, the same thing. So the Rams just load up on running backs that I like, I guess. I mean, and it's proven good because, like you said, I mean, when the offense is reliant just on Jared Goff, that's when the other team's defensive line really just starts to tee off. And I was watching that Miami game to see Tua's first start, and I mean, it just unraveled once things started to get out of hand a little bit, and they had to get away from the run game. That's when things started to really not go well. Then the game just got out of hand. But I mean, yeah, this Rams offense is still very high powered, and I think it's better that they moved on from Todd Gurley. I honestly do. I wasn't a huge fan of Todd Gurley. I just felt like his knees were kind of done pretty much. I thought that he just didn't have a whole lot left in the tank, and he's having an okay year in Atlanta. But I think the Rams' plan for as far as like the run game goes has been perfect, and I think it's worked to perfection so far.
Yeah, and point to that Todd Gurley, because he's still, like you said, he's been fairly productive in Atlanta, and it's good to see him, back home and still playing. And we all love Todd out here, and he had great years. But I think what was best for the Rams, it was just getting out from under that shadow, right? Because he had such a dominant 2017 and 2018. Then 2019, every game was just questions. Well, why wasn't Gurley getting the ball? Is he injured? Is he not? Is he in the doghouse? What's going on? And so it was always a focal point of media, of fans, and then just of the actual game plan is what's going on with Todd Gurley. Now they can move on and just say, literally, we're running back by committee. We're going to rush the ball 30 times a game and move forward, and that's what it's been. So I think it worked out best for both parties.
Now, while we're talking about this Rams offense, let's not ignore the passing attack that they do have, a really good trio of wide receivers. But I will say, if there's one thing that we've seen this season that can just absolutely tear this Bucs defense apart, it is crossing routes. And I think that is the bread and butter on offense when it comes to guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods for LA. So I'm really expecting that to be a really big focus point for this defense coming into this game. Evan, do you agree? Like, do you think that's just where they can cut us up the most, underneath and maybe some crossing routes? Is because I feel confident in the run defense, I really do. But it's just those short gains, those quick passes that eat us alive.
Yeah, you look back at that last game last year, and Jared Goff, I think it might still be a career high for him in yards or something like that. And they threw the ball all over the lot. And while I think the Bucs defense has improved now from when it was back then, these guys are still no joke. And if the Bucs game plans the past few weeks on defense have been up and down. New Orleans, the entire game plan, the whole game was just awful. Carolina, you sort of saw the same thing in the first half, and then they made the adjustments in the second half and really able to take over. This Rams offense is so much better than Carolina's, and they just have so much more firepower and speed than Carolina does. And Carolina's got guys like Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel. So I really like LA's offense. Another guy, Van Jefferson, from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of him. I've seen him make a few plays here and there. Josh Reynolds, I liked him coming out. So I think that they have really stockpiled their receivers well. I Bleav Gerald Everett at tight end, I've always been sort of a fan of his as well. They got weapons, and if the Bucs are going to sit back and just play soft zone, I think Goff is going to be able to find guys pretty easily. You're going to have to bump them, but when you do bump and play man on those crossing routes and stuff with how twitchy like Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are, that's where you get yourself in some trouble, because on a crossing route, that's like the best way to beat man. I think Robert Woods knows how to basically get off of his man right away, and then Goff can just hit him, and it wouldn't take much time at all for the defensive line to be able to get there. So I think it could be an issue. I think it's all going to rely on the Bucs pass rush. If they can get home, I think it affects a lot more, and I think it'll change what LA can do. But if they can't, I think it could be a long day, and Goff could have a big day.
Yeah, let's stick with that for a second, because the thing that's given this Rams offense so much trouble, and if you watch the Miami game, you know what I'm talking about, is that pass rush. Plenty of cover zero they saw, and the Rams didn't adjust and did blockers back there. And Todd Bowles is he's not shy about blitzing. That's what his defense predicates, is getting after the quarterback. So let me ask you guys this: what kind of blitzes and stuff does Todd Bowles dial up, and how do you think he does that to basically alleviate what you guys are worried about, these crossing pattern stuff to get after the quarterback?
So I haven't seen him do much cover zero. That's not the type of blitzes that they tend to do. I saw, Miami did it a bunch to the Rams, and the Rams just seemed to have no answer for it at any point in that game. It seemed like every time Miami did it, it was a turnover going the other way. He doesn't do a ton of that, and maybe that's in the game plan this week. Maybe Bowles sort of watched that Miami game and saw it and said, hey, there's something here. But A lot of times he'll send a nickel. He'll send one of the nickel corners in. Really likes to blitz the two linebackers, Levante David and Devin White. Those guys are his main two blitzers. Just lets them go. Then they have Antoine Winfield in the secondary that'll come down every now and then. So a lot of it's not a lot of cover zero. Normally when he's blitzing, he's sending one or two guys. He's not typically sending the house, but who knows? I mean, maybe he does see something on film and say, hey, every now and then let's try this. So I think it might be something that you see, but for a Todd Bowles defense, in the past 2 years that we've seen it, he doesn't typically run those types of blitzes. But it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of guys that are just coming at you in all different directions. So,
and he really does like to get you in the mental game when it comes to moving personnel around. A handful of times we've seen this season, and Ndamukong Suh will just stand up and he'll stand at the A-gap like he's the guy who's about to rush through. So, I mean, he'll, give you a bunch of different looks when it comes to the blitz. But yeah, just like Evan said, you don't see a whole lot of preparing for, that coverage over the middle of the field. That's just where they get eaten up for sure every single week. But let's talk about this Rams defense. We mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but that defense is led, as always, by Aaron Donald, who is probably on his way to another Defensive Player of the Year award. But now they've also got shutdown corner Jaylen Ramsey, and then the guy that we had mentioned before, Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd, excuse me. But there are a couple of other big names on that defense as well, and as we alluded to before, they are playing some very, very good football. They shut down Seattle. They held Russell Wilson to probably his worst game of the season. I mean, it really is just complimentary football they're going out there and playing, and they're on a roll right now.
Yeah, like I said right in the beginning, they're surprised everyone, and they're playing lights out. I saw a stat last week. Jaylen Ramsey covered DK Metcalf on 30 routes, and Metcalf had 4 targets and 2 receptions for 28 yards. And that's a receiver that's just been lighting the league up and tearing everyone apart, and Jaylen Ramsey shut the door on that. But then you mentioned all the big name guys, but you have guys that are not household names that are becoming them. Darius Williams, who is a corner that was, cut by the Ravens 2 years ago, joined the Rams last year. Sean McVay kind of fell in love with them and talked a lot about him, said he's going to have a bright future for this Rams team. And he showed out this year. Week in and week out, he plays better and better. Had 2 picks last week and a huge pass breakup in the end zone against Seattle. So he's played well. Jordan Fuller, 6th-round pick out of Ohio State that everyone thought the Rams were set at safety with John Johnson and Taylor Rapp. The Rams ended up taking 2 safeties in this year's draft, and Jordan Fuller ended up being a starter from day one. Taylor Rapp, unfortunately, now on IR. Hopefully he'll come back at some point in the season. But Fuller's been playing great. He's a lot of fun to watch. And so a lot of these guys in this Staley system just kind of integrates guys that are good at what they do. He doesn't kind of put, round or square pegs in round holes, if you will. Just showcases what their abilities are and allows them to play their brand of football. And it's about, coaches coaching and players executing, and they're all doing it at a very high, efficient level. And it's been fun to watch. And this defensive line, in my opinion, is one of the best in the NFL. We haven't even mentioned Michael Brockers just because he doesn't really end up on the stat sheet, but he's just a beast in the run defense. And, he's a guy that eats up blocks as well, can get after the quarterback if needed, had that big sack on Tua, or he hit Tua, I think, or him and Darnold were on that first play with Tua. It's just a good unit. And a lot of fun to watch. I wish Vita Vea was healthy, because then you'd have former teammates that would be obviously not going up against each other. They both play defensive line, but Greg Gaines and Vita Vea both being UW products. I love me some Vita Vea, so I'm bummed he's on the IR.
Oh, yeah, man. That was a big loss for that defensive line this season. Evan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much covered it. Their defensive line, I think, when you look on paper, and a lot of times when you say, oh, yeah, I'll look on paper, but it doesn't translate. Well, this one did. I'm a big fan of Michael Brockers. I've always been. A'Shawn Robinson, I think, is okay. I definitely prefer Brockers to him, but they're similar. A'Shawn Robinson isn't going to give you as much pass rush. He's more like a run-stop guy, but I still think he's solid. And obviously Aaron Donald. But like I talked about, Leonard Floyd is the guy that
Evan,
really
quick, I don't want to cut you off, but their goal is, because A'Shawn Robinson played his first game last week after being out with a cardiovascular thing. So their ultimate goal is to have those 3 guys on the field at the same time: Donald, A'Shawn in the middle, and Brockers on the edge. So that's the kind of idea. But I totally agree with you that, yeah, I do like Brockers' athleticism. And what a huge get that was, that he signed with Baltimore and fell through and ended up back. So sorry, I just wanted to point that out. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you'd run on that defensive line then. So, good luck, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think a big key was Jaylen Ramsey really coming back and playing like Jaylen Ramsey. And then, like you said, with the other corners they had, and I was a big fan of Taylor Rapp. It sucks that he went on IR. But I mean, yeah, their secondary really. I mean, if you're just going back and looking at the game from last year, right? I mean, the Bucks. I didn't think. I thought the same about the Rams defense last year. I thought they were a good unit, and I was shocked when the Bucks were just throwing all over them. But at that time, the Rams didn't have Jaylen Ramsey. They still had Marcus Peters. I remember Peters had a pick 6 in that game.
And he got absolutely
so
clobbered by Donovan Smith at the end of it, if
I
you remember that part too.
Yeah, I do remember
I was
that.
actually at that game, yeah, so I remember it well.
So I mean, yeah, they're just a really good unit, and I mean, yes, like they haven't played the greatest offenses this year, but I mean, you just look at last week and what they did to Seattle, where Russell Wilson, I mean, you're talking about him in every MVP race talk, every single one. It's involving Russell Wilson's name, and the Rams just completely shut it down. But I mean, they gave up 28 points to the Dolphins, but one was a special teams touchdown. One was a fumble recovery that went right down to like the 2 or 3 yard line, I believe. And one was a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So, I mean, that's not that. Like, I mean, everybody talked about Tua winning his first game. I was like, well, he didn't really do a whole lot, and the Rams still forced a turnover early on there. So, but I mean, yeah, if you look at it, like the 49ers still have a good offense. The Rams lost that game, but still only allowed 24 points. It's very, very impressive what they've been able to do. The weakness, I think, is probably the linebackers. Ryan, if you disagree, you can let me know. But when I look at it, I look at the linebackers, and if the Bucs are going to target one thing, I think, get the tight ends, Rob Gronkowski and Cameron Brate, against those linebackers one-on-one matchups and see if you can win them. I think that's where the Bucs' success on offense is going to have to come from. But ultimately, I think it's going to be protecting Tom Brady, especially if Ali Marpette can't go. In the losses that the Bucs have had, in the 3 losses, sacks and hits on Tom Brady have been an issue in every single one. So if you're going to beat the Bucs, you're going to have to hit Tom Brady. If you can't hit Tom Brady, I think it's going to be awfully tough to beat this Bucs team. They just have too many weapons, and I think it opens up a lot. But if you get to hitting them, I think you can really start to beat up on this Bucs team. And look at the Rams. This could be a recipe for disaster for the Bucs if Ali Marpette can't go because, like I said, he's their best offensive lineman, and you're going up against a guy like Aaron Donald. I mean, that's just, like I said, they did a fine job against him last year, but I mean, Alex Kappa, I like Ryan Jensen, but guard isn't even his natural position. AQ Shipley is undersized. So if Tom Brady has time, I think this could be another shootout potentially, but if not, it could get ugly.
I think it's an accurate statement. The way that this game shapes up, if someone were to say that this could be a shootout, or someone else could say that, this is going to be a defensive battle, low scoring, both are accurate statements. Like, it really is one of those games that looks like all the elements come together and it could go one way or the other. But you brought up the Rams secondary a little bit, and I wanted to transition, talk about some of the matchups we're looking at. We talked a lot about that Rams pass rush and, the effectiveness of any team hitting Tom Brady, slowing down the offense, but I'm going to be watching these wide receivers of Tampa Bay match up with the DBs. Rams defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, they're moving guys all around back there in that secondary. You've seen Jaylen Ramsey play like a hybrid nickel, I guess they would call it. They got Troy Hill, Darius Williams. Those guys are playing outside, and then you see them mix it up a little bit. You see Hill at the nickel, Ramsey and Williams are playing outside. So, I'm curious to see how they can attack this wide receiver set, because, the Bucs are not shy. Sometimes they'll come at you with 4 wide receivers because, let's face it, they can do it. When you've got Mike Evans, who, while we have complained, has been slow a little bit, he's still, I think, tied for second place in the league for touchdowns right now because it's like a 3-way tie for first. But, he's having a good season. Brady's doing a good job of spreading the ball out. Antonio Brown is finally getting his legs underneath him. So I'm curious to see what they do and how they adjust. And, Ryan, how do you think they approach this Bucs offense?
Well, it's you got names and stars at every level of the field. So it's a hard offense to really game plan for and to slow down. Frostee and I talked a lot about this actually when the Chargers played you guys, who they did a good job in the first half and then just completely fell apart in the second half. But, I mean, one thing you have to do against any Tom Brady-led offense, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, Evan, but you have to get pressure without blitzing. Because, when you blitz, he's going to pick you apart. Or you have to really disguise your blitz as well. Because he'll pick you apart before he snaps the ball and says, okay, this guy's blitzing. I know this guy's going to be open in the flats. I'll just get the ball out, within 1.2 seconds or whatever. So it's key to be able to get pass rush with their 4 guys. And then that allows your secondary better chances. Now, speaking specifically of the secondary, Jaylen Ramsey, like you mentioned, Rhett, they've been moving guys all over. We saw last week Jaylen Ramsey follow DK a lot more than usual. This week, however, I wouldn't think that just because the Buccaneers have legit 3 number 1 wide receivers. So who do you really want him to be on? So I think he'll pick a side, whether it's right or left, and he'll just stick to that side. And then I would assume Darius Williams will be a little bit more on Antonio Brown just for size-wise, and maybe he runs out of the slot a little more. But it's a good Bucs unit. Especially if they're all on the same page. I think this week with all the COVID stuff that's happened and different practices, that hurts the Bucs a little bit. Tom Brady's, obviously, you guys know, has said a lot about how they're just trying to still get on the same page, still build chemistry, and they need as many reps as possible. And when those get taken away, that bodes well for defenses as opposed to the offense. So that kind of swings in the Rams' favor a little bit. But, hat on a hat, you got to take these Bucs receivers, but I just think the way Staley's schemed things up, and they use Jordan Fuller in what they call like a star position, where he kind of rows around, plays in the box a lot, plays over the top. He kind of is all over the field. So it's fun. It's been fun to watch, but it'll be a really good matchup with these 3 or 4 or 5 wide receivers that the Bucs can roll out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a big key for the Bucs offense, as far as really just taking advantage of this Rams defense is, and it's something we talk about every week on this show, it's trying to get the run game going, which is going to be tough against this Rams defensive line. And if the Bucs rush for over 100 yards, I forget what their record is, but when they rush for over 100 yards, it's like their record is really good. Like they just normally don't lose. And I mean, last week they rushed for, I believe, over 200 yards. So obviously
98 on one play helps.
Yeah, it's skewed a little bit by that one play, but yeah, I mean, they just, during the Packers game, they rushed for over 100. They dominated the Packers. I believe the Raiders game, they might have gotten close. They really, the offense, yes, it is a pass-first offense. It's a Bruce Arians offense. That hasn't changed. But a guy like Tom Brady lives off of play action, too. And when there's no threat of a run game, that play action threat is just nothing. Like teams are just going to be like, okay, well, now we're going to let Leonard Floyd and we're going to let Aaron Donald just tee off against these guys, because we know that they're going to have to pass it 35, 40 times a game, and that's just not a recipe for success for this offense. So staying on schedule, keeping a balanced attack, keeping the Rams guessing, I think is a big key in determining the success this offense has. And I'll say it one more time. I think the run game, it could be good, but if Ali Marpette's out, I don't see a way they're going to be able to run effectively against this Rams defensive line. I mean, the right side of the Bucs is with a rookie Tristan Wirfs and an inexperienced Alex Cappa. While Kappa's been having a decent season, he's still inexperienced. And then you have likely A.Q. Shipley at center, with Ryan Jensen and Donovan Smith on the left side. Donovan Smith's been a target of many Bucs fans, so because he's had really his ups and downs, but his downs are really down.
Really quickly, I don't mean to cut you off, but Donovan Smith, gotta give him some credit. He did play a really, really good game against Carolina, and if there's one thing that we've seen him do well, if you pull him on a block, that's all there is to it. He is extremely athletic.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that, like I said, I think people are sick of me sort of defending Donovan Smith. I'm not saying that he's good. It's just I don't think he's as bad as people say. But this could be a game that, like, after the game, I feel like fans could be like, oh, Donovan Smith lost them this game. Like, I feel like this could be that type of game. So it'll definitely be interesting to see, but I think a lot of the offensive success really depends on if Ali Marpette's there and if they can run the football, even, like, not maybe over 100 yards, but just run it effectively to where it's some sort of a threat.
Yeah, for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, every single week on the show to wrap things up, we do something called the weekly checklist, and it's a list that I put together over the course of the show. And basically, to put it simply, 3 things the Bucs need to do if they want to win on Monday night. First things first, let's kick it off. 1, Evan had just mentioned it, but don't abandon the run game. You know, this is a pass-first offense, yes, but any offense is going to benefit from a run game that's doing well. And when we've seen this offense play on, all cylinders, it's because the run game is working. So don't be afraid to abandon the run game. It could be a higher scoring game, but give it to Ronald Jones. He's proven he can run the rock, and let's see what happens. Second up on the weekly checklist, you got to keep Brady clean. Again, as we had mentioned, the absence of Ali Marpette, hopefully not, but if it happens, the absence of Ali Marpette will be huge for this offensive line, and it'll be probably the most pressure they have felt on any game this season, because not only are you playing with, a makeshift line a little bit, filling in at center, moving Jensen over to the guard, you're playing Aaron Donald and the Rams defensive line, who is eating people alive. So keeping Tom Brady clean is another one of those things. Just like the run game, you give Brady time, this offense plays its best football we've seen, and it's as simple as that. The last one, I don't want to be overshadowed by anything else, but play a clean game, play a disciplined game, because I think a lot of what we've seen when this Bucs team collapsed under the lights, it's because they beat themselves. And we haven't talked about discipline as much as we have in the past on this show, but it's still imperative that on prime time, you got to show up, no mistakes, because this is a game where that one mistake, that one call that turns a 3rd down into a 1st down could lose you this game, just like a lot of them did against Chicago, getting shades of that Thursday night game. But that is my weekly checklist. Evan, if you have anything you want to add for the Buccaneers, and then afterwards, Ryan, if you have a checklist or anything imperative for the Rams on Monday night, feel free. But Evan, anything else?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I mean, if the Bucs do those 3 things, I think they're going to win. I don't know if all 3 of those things are going to happen. We'll see. But I mean, I think if they're able to do those 3 things there, I think the biggest one is probably just shutting down the Rams defensive line. I think that's just a huge key. And like you said, the penalties, which, I mean, against New Orleans, they just got their butts kicked. I mean, they didn't even really. Yeah, it didn't really matter, like penalties, but that Chicago game, yeah, penalties just did them in. I mean, if you cut their penalties in half, they probably beat Chicago there, and it's definitely something that they're going to have to improve upon if they want to win this game, because the Rams is a good football team, and I mean, this is a huge game for the NFC standings as far as playoff goes. Obviously, I know tonight it's Seattle and Arizona as far as seeding goes, especially on the Rams side of things with the NFC West. That is a huge game. So the Rams are going to want to win this one because not only do they want to prove that they're for real, but they could maybe jump a little bit in the NFC West here. So it's definitely a big game for both teams, and it'll be interesting to see. But I think your checklist is pretty much good. Ryan, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game for both teams, and if I want to take the easy road, I could just say they just need to blow up your guys' checklist, and that's how they.
Yeah.
But no, it's a huge game. The Rams have been. I think they're a very good team. I think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they haven't really beaten a really good team. Obviously, they beat Seattle, but a division game, anyone can beat anyone. Like it's you could be a bad team and still beat a good division team. So it's their chance to stack a couple games now finally, and prove nationally that they are for real. And this defense is for real, as they're second ranked in the entire NFL, and this offense is getting things going in the right direction. So for them to do that, though, first and foremost, I mentioned it earlier, they have to not only establish the run, but stick to the run. They need to run the ball 30-plus times. I think that's their sweet spot. As long as they get 30-plus carries, I don't care if they're getting 2.83 yards a carry. It at least will establish that they're sticking to it, and it eventually is going to open things up for the passing game and the play action and the bootlegs and the waggles and everything they do well. And you don't do that if you don't prove that you're going to run the ball no matter what. So they have to stick to the run, even if it gets frustrating with that really good defensive front 7 for the Buccaneers. So that's one. Number 2 is on defense. You have to be able to apply pressure on Brady with the 4-man front. You can't send a ton of blitzers. You can every now and then if you do good disguises, but they have to get pressure from their big 4 up front. Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald. If Aaron Donald's doubled or tripled, who's going to step up in his place? You mentioned it earlier, Evan. We saw Leonard Floyd do it last week with 3 sacks. We've seen in the past Troy Reeder do it off the bench. So who's going to be the guy that steps up if Aaron Donald is double and triple teamed. And if not, let's see Aaron Donald get home a couple times. So apply pressure with 4. And lastly, we need an explosive player too. This Rams offense, I think, has been fairly efficient. They've been pretty productive for most weeks, other than a few, but they haven't really had those big, huge 98-yard touchdown runs, right? They haven't had those big, fun, SportsCenter top 10, Jared Goff to Cooper Kupp down the seam for 70 yards. They haven't had those, rollouts to a cutting Robert Woods, Bobby Trees over the middle. So they need an explosive player too in this game. And I think that's going to bode well for them. So those are my 3 checks. If they're able to do that, I think they'll be good enough to take this one as well.
Alrighty, let's wrap this thing up with some good old-fashioned score predictions. I'll start off. Like I said earlier, this is a game that really does seem like it could go either way. It could be high-scoring, could be a defensive battle. Who the hell knows at this point? But I'll tell you this. I think it is going to be an offensive-driven game. I think the Buccaneers are going to have to be rolling on all cylinders, which is even more crucial with the holes at offensive line, but you're going to have to put points up on the board if you want to beat the Rams, and I think they do just that. I have got Tampa Bay coming out on top, and a close one, 35-31. Evan, what have you got?
Oh, man. I do think that Ali Marpette this game depends on what you think Marpette's status is going to be for me. And I don't love this matchup, man. I really, really don't. The Bucs suck on prime time. If they were playing at 1 o'clock on Sunday, I'd feel much better, but they don't. So I'm assuming Marpette's not going to play. So I'm going to go with 31-24 Rams. I just think that they're going to do just enough, and I don't think the Bucs offense might have the ball with a chance to tie it at the end, and I just don't think they're going to be able to drive the field and score a touchdown to tie the game. So I think it'll be a close game. I think this will be back and forth fairly pretty much the entire game, but I just think the Rams pulled away a little bit at the end and escape with a W. So I think if Marpette was going to play and was 100%, my score prediction might be different, but I think it's a huge loss. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Evan, not to be a homer at all. I've been rolling with this Rams defense all year. I can't bail on them now. I projected last week against Seattle to hold Seattle, one of the top offenses in the NFL, to under 17 points, and they held them to under 17 points. I think what makes this defense so great is they might not get off to the best starts early. They give up some big chunk plays, some big yardage, some points early, but those halftime adjustments, they are one of the best in the league. And from what the Bucs games I've watched is they're kind of similar on the offensive side, right? They get off kind of slow, and then they make halftime adjustments and come out in the second half guns blaring. So I think we'll see that fun kind of chess match happen at halftime. And I think the Rams, the fact that they've given up like under 20 points total this season in the second half, they come out on top. So I like this game 24-17 Rams. All right, Frost. So you heard it. Obviously, you weren't in the conversation, unfortunately. It's a busy life. It's the holidays coming up. Everything's going on. I totally get it. But let's briefly touch on the game. What's your thoughts on this one? We saw the Bucs. Obviously, they played the Chargers, so we talked about it a lot, which I think made this segment easy because we kind of already talked about the offense, what defenses needed to do, so we didn't really need to go into breaking down X's and O's. But obviously, a different team in the Rams. So how do you kind of like this matchup for our LA Rams? Can they start stacking games?
I think they stack games. I think this will be a tough one just because Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, how they just finished their last game. But the Rams finished a great game versus a really good team in Seattle Seahawks. And it was one that, surprisingly, I didn't go for the Rams, and I went for the Seahawks, or an old conference foe of mine when I played with the Cardinals, obviously. But I think the Rams got this. I really do. I believe in how Leonard Floyd's playing, the defensive line, the defensive unit itself. They have enough to stop this offense, and we'll just see how they go out there. But I'm going to go with the Rams on this one.
I love it. There you go. He's back. He's back, guys. He's back on the wagon. No, I like it. I said it in the interview too. I like the Rams in this one too. I just think this defense is playing so good. And we talked about it in the Chargers previews, the way you have to shut down Brady's, you have to get pressure with 4, right? You don't want to blitz guys because then Brady's going to pick you apart pre-snap. And I think the Rams front 4 is playing well enough to get after Brady and not have to send that extra blitzer. So they can cover, all outlets of this super dynamic, talented Bucs offense. So I like the Rams as well. I think the defense shuts down Brady. I know they looked dynamic last week against Carolina, put up a ton of points. Shout out Ronald Jones with a 98-yard touchdowns, joining 4 running backs ever in NFL history with over 98 yards. So
special weekend. And Ron, I want to note this. It's the first time I said someone else's name instead of Aaron Donald. I said Leonard Floyd, and he's coming along. We weren't too high on him, especially in LA, coming from Chicago. We didn't know what we were going to get out of this guy, but did he show up last week and do what he's supposed to do? And he's starting to show up game by game. He's starting to play well. He's getting really comfortable with his teammates in LA. Must be something Coach Eric Henderson has going on. But again, we've been saying this from the get-go. We need to find another player to not outshine Aaron Donald, but complement him. And Leonard Floyd, you are that guy.
absolutely. Who we say it every week. Who's going to step up besides Aaron Donald? We know what we're going to get every week with Aaron Donald, whether it shows up on the stat sheet or not. We know he's going to be great. But who, when he doesn't show up in the stat sheet, is going to show up in the stat sheet. And Floyd's been doing that. Matched his already season high 7 sacks, and we're only in week 9. So he's having a career year already. You mentioned a lot of LA guys really didn't know what we were getting when they signed him. And now I saw him all week on Twitter. Sign this guy long term. What's our cap room looking like? Get this guy signed up. So I love seeing when guys come in on a 1-year deal, prove it deal, and they prove it. I think it's awesome for them on a personal level and on a career level. So, shout out to Leonard Floyd, and I hope he has another big week this week.
Yeah.
So,
likewise.
So yeah, it should be a good one. Both Frostee and I like the Rams. Monday Night Showdown. Last thing I want to say is the Bucs have looked pitiful on primetime. So hopefully that continues. They look good on 1:00 starts. Primetime has not been their thing. So
right.
the
stars aligned and Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, their biggest games they have went down the drain, dude. Like this hasn't even been close to what we were expecting out of this team. Yet they still sit there with a great record, but their losses when it comes on primetime are flat out embarrassing.
Yeah, and I think both these teams, we don't truly know how good they are. I believe in the Rams. I've said it a lot. I think they are a true contender. And I think the Bucs are a true contender. But we see some weeks where each of these teams have been like, what was that? And we see other weeks where we're like, wow, this is a dominant team that could beat anybody. So hopefully this gives us a little more clarity, and hopefully it's on the Rams side, which we both think it will be. So should be a great game. Monday Night Football. Rams, we think, move to 7-3, which will probably put them in first place for the division because the Cardinals and Seahawks both play this week. So one of them has to lose. So they'll still be tied with one team, but I think they'll get the tiebreaker there with the win over Seattle. So tune in.
Tune in, guys.
All right, let's transition now into college football. Let's start with the UCLA Bruins, who had a very dominant win over the Cal Bears on a Sunday. I don't think this next game is going to be as easy as they face the 11th ranked Oregon Ducks. Oregon looked good, man. I mean, they looked shaky in the first half against Washington State and then really poured it on and looked like a true contender in that second half. I know they have a all new offensive line that they're learning with. So their young quarterback is having to kind of learn on the fly. Their offensive line learn on the fly, but Mario Cristobal obviously has tremendous knowledge from that position. So they'll have those guys ready to rock and roll. What do you think? We'll keep it kind of brief, but what do you think the Bruins need to do to, I would say it'd be a huge upset if they won, but to make this game competitive, how do the Bruins need to get out of the gate?
I'm going to have to say DTR and Chip Kelly, these guys have to have a phenomenal game together. The play calls have to be on. UCLA's offense has to be able to compete with Oregon because Oregon can score. They're athletic. They got ability. But UCLA shown us last week that if DTR has a great game, this team can move the ball down the field. They can make big plays, and they can score. So DTR, Chip Kelly, it's on you guys. You guys are circled this week. Make these plays, and I think UCLA has a great chance of making it a close one and maybe even edging them out.
Love it, yeah. Love it. Yeah, well, it's always good to play spoiler because you don't have the pressure. I haven't looked at Bet Online yet what the spread is. I'm sure it's fairly high for the Ducks. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's got to be an important game for DTR and Chip Kelly. But the most important thing to me, because we know this offense can score. I think they can score with any of them. I think they play most defenses in the entire college football. They're going to put up points eventually. But for me, it's about starting off strong. Because even last week against Cal, blocked punt and then a pick on their second possession. Luckily, Cal's offense is very, very bad, maybe the worst in the Pac-12, so it didn't cost them a lot, and then they were able to come back and then pour it on later. Oregon's offense is a lot stronger. If they have those mistakes early on and they get into a hole, regardless of how many points they can score, I don't think UCLA's defense is good enough to completely shut down Oregon's offense like they did Cal. So they got to just start off strong. And it sounds like a simple recipe. That's what you should say every week, but it's super important this week when you play a good team like this. We saw last year, I've mentioned it before, they were putting string of games together. They go to Utah, which was going to be, hey, if they win this game, this is really a team that can show some things. They get down early. They end up getting blown out like 51-14. They're trying to do too much. ETR is trying to put the team on his back, score 20 points on one play. I think he's matured a little bit from that stage, but they just got to start strong, not turn the ball over, not try to make huge plays happen on the first possession. Give it to him as the defense gives it and play a full 60 minutes. And I think at the very least, they're going to be competitive as they do that. Just don't turn the ball over and compete.
The one thing I know when you're playing a very talented team that everyone outside of your locker room is going to pick them to win and maybe even possibly blow you out, you can't be afraid of them. And you have to really go there and fight for the last name on your jersey and the emblem on your helmet. And this is one of those games because Chip Kelly has a history with this team. DTR feels disrespected. Felton needs the ball. And it's time for this offense to click. And if the offense clicks, the defense may come up with that big play, and it could be a turnover that gets them in short field that can make this a really good matchup. So offense, DTR, Chip Kelly, it's on you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll be a good one. I'm not sure. I know Micah Pittman, Michael Pittman's younger brother who plays for Oregon, didn't play last week. I'm not sure if he's still out for this game, but that's another huge weapon for Oregon that if he does play, UCLA will have to key on to slow down because he is a very talented young receiver. So we'll watch that as the game nears. But, hopefully it's competitive. I think UCLA has a really chance to show that they're trending in the right direction. To me, and last thing I'll say about this game, and then we can move on to the Trojans, Frostee, is win or loss. This is a game that I think will show not just UCLA fans, but will show new athletic director Martin Jarmond if Chip Kelly is his coach moving forward. Because even if they lose, if they come out and compete, and I know it's football, I know it's the COVID-6, there's no true moral losses, but when UCLA is not competing for a Rose Bowl this year, they're not competing for a college football playoff, that's not happening regardless. So they're building on what this program is going to be in the future, and so they need to come out and compete. And if they hold Oregon to a one-score game, or they're fighting all game long, and you could see them playing for Chip, then Martin Jarmond can hang his hat and say, you know what, I think Chip Kelly might be the guy for this program moving forward. If they get blown out from the very beginning, have tons of turnovers, a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of penalties, then I think he's saying, yeah, this might be the end of the Chip Kelly era in UCLA, and I think it starts this Saturday against Oregon.
And that's the thing with our two Pac-12 teams we cover. They both got new athletic directors. They're both battling COVID-6, and they didn't change their head coaches. So now the ADs aren't married to these guys. They have to see how this team responds in adverse moments. This is a really big game for the UCLA Bruins and a bigger game for Chip Kelly, right? And he needs to show up, and his team has to be prepared to win at all costs. And that's what I'm putting. It's win or bust for him.
Yep.
Completely. It's win or bust for Chip Kelly this week. The Trojans are 2-0. UCLA is 1-1. This is a huge game, and the Trojans already beat the top team that they're going to play, right? This is the top team UCLA is going to play, and they have to compete and be victorious.
Yeah, and if they do become victorious, that's going to flip the Pac-12 on its head and flip a lot of rankings on their head too. I looked it up while we were talking. Oregon is a 13.5 point favorite. If I'm a betting man, if I'm going to betonline.ag, I'm taking the Bruins plus 13.5. I like that spread, and I think they can even play spoiler.
And if I'm going on, I think the UCLA Bruins are going to win this game. I might take that bet. So I might, pull out the old cell phone here and
there you go. You're taking just the money line. You don't even need the points. Taking just straight up win.
Straight up win. I'm doing it. You heard it here. I'm doing it.
So if UCLA does beat Oregon, that makes things really interesting for now USC, because I don't know if you feel this way. I think for USC, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but hey, this is a podcast, so we can do it. We're here to talk and have fun with it. If USA has a shot to play in the college football playoff, obviously they have to go undefeated, but I believe they need to beat a ranked Pac-12 team at the end of the season in order to do that. If Oregon loses this game and whoever USC would play then in the conference championship, either will not be ranked or will be ranked beneath them, whereas right now Oregon's above them. So that'll have huge repercussions for USC's plan. It'd be great for UCLA, a huge, huge win for them, a huge win for Chip Kelly. So obviously you want that to happen. But for USC, Frostee, the team that we have has obviously the chance of this Pac-12 South to make it, do you kind of actually want Oregon to win this game?
It's a good one. It's up in the air, because it's strength of schedule, and that's what's going to ultimately tell the tale to get in. But obviously both these teams are really facing each game's a playoff game now. And they just got to win. Just win, baby. The old Al Davis saying. You just got to win. I think what everyone is anticipating is Oregon being there and USC being there at the end of the road. But UCLA can definitely shake some stuff up and be a spoiler and even put themselves in position to, do some magic. And now the recruiting is going to go up. Now these guys that are leaving LA to go to Oregon or go across town to USC, now they may want to be a Bruin. Yeah. And it comes down to winning these games. This is a huge game for this program, and I hope they're taking it as serious as I am.
Absolutely, yeah. There you go. I hope so, too. If you're taking it seriously, they better be taking it seriously. So let's switch gears to USC. You had Scott Schrader on from USC Scoop on your show, Take Back the West. He does awesome work there. Been covering the team since you played, I believe. So super big insider. He said he does believe if USC wins out or if a Pac-12 team wins out, they will put them in the college playoff simply for, obviously you go undefeated in conference play with everything going on that speaks volumes, but also with there, and I'm not, he didn't necessarily say this part, this is more me adding it, but I think with everything going on with numbers, with revenue and stuff like that, it almost behooves the committee to put in a West Coast team just for those views and stuff. And if they're undefeated, you can argue for it. Do you think USC, if they go undefeated, you think they make it?
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping. I do hope, my Trojans rally and just win every game, no matter if it's a big margin or small. I don't mind just because of the situation of what it is. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, all you want this team to do is win. Me as a fan, obviously we want numbers and stats and this, that, and the other, and players do too, just because if they have a vision and dreams to go to the next level, they need that, and that comes with it. But at the end of the day, the tale of the tale for our program is just to win. We need to win these games. And if they get in, I think they do go to the playoffs. Not saying what would happen if they matched up versus Clemson or a Bama, or LSU or Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame. There's some really good teams out there that have been stacking for a decade now with recruits, and SC's just now coming back. They're just now getting these recruits. So, look, win out, and that takes care of all the noise. Yeah. Just win out and stack them and then deal with it in January.
How awesome would it be? I haven't looked into all the scenarios and stuff like that. I just don't have time for that, looking at all the other conferences. But how fun would that be if somehow at the end of the season, because Cincinnati is playing phenomenal right now. I think they're sixth.
They are.
I think they're sixth in the country.
The team playing.
So if somehow in the college football playoff with 4 teams, which hopefully I don't know how you feel, this is a different discussion. I hope one day we'll have 8 teams in the playoff, but right now as it is 4, how fun would that be if somehow Cincinnati and SC get matched up in that first round? Mike Bones' former college where he was. I think that'd be a great game.
It would be really sweet, and I think it would be a hell of a game too.
Yeah.
Because Cincinnati is playing, despite everything everyone's dealing with, Luke Fickell and his coaching staff has that team playing well, and they're primed to, make some noise. I don't see them losing.
No, yeah. I especially in that conference, I think they're playing extremely well. So we'll monitor that. That'd be fun. But let's look at this game. Utah Utes haven't played yet. Obviously a super well-coached team, and Kyle Whittingham. It seems year in and year out they don't have the top recruits, but he's just that good at coaching that they're very competitive and very dominant at what they do. Does this game scare you, considering they haven't played and we really don't know anything about them?
Last week I was on the side of USC should blow out Arizona and rout them just because of the simple fact that they already played a game and Arizona didn't. That wasn't the case. Arizona wasn't afraid of them, played them all the way to the very end, and shocked a lot of people in the Pac-12 that they could compete at that level, just going off the basis of last year's game and the route USC did on them and the record that they had overall. Arizona played a great game. Did they get better? I think so. Brand new coach. I think they got a lot better. Utah coming to the Pac-12, SC has kind of had their number in Utah and in LA. Do I think Utah poses a threat? Yes, they do have a very mature team that can play. They're well coached, like you said, with Coach Kyle Whittingham. But I think the Trojans are going to roll. I can't say they're going to blow out anyone. I'm not even going to speak on that. And I do think the Trojans have a few things they need to iron out just to make it a better game to watch. You know, we're looking for high-scoring, big plays down the field, breaking tackles up and down the sideline, 60-yard runs. We're looking for big plays like that. We haven't really got that from SC, only in the last crunch time of the games. You know, we get a drive that will sustain and then score, and then they win the game. Everyone's happy. But throughout the game, it looks like they can move the ball, they dink and dunk, but then they don't put the points up. SC should win this game. SC has the team to win this game. Utah hasn't played for 2 weeks, but again, can they set the pads and just be so hyped up and have energy to go in and compete and make it a game? Yeah, but SC wins this one 3-0 after this Saturday.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, and this is no disrespect to Utah, but I brought up the recruiting wise for this reason. I think that going into this year, everyone was, obviously disappointed with USC's recruiting, but I think Utah was like 12th in the Pac-12. Year in and year out, they're a low recruiting class, but because of how good of a coach Whittingham is, he gets the best out of these playmakers. He turns 3-stars into, 5-star style players. This year, exactly. But this year's different because they haven't been able to practice, and now they haven't played. You can't coach up kids if you're not on the field practicing. So I think that hurts them a lot because he's not able to use that phenomenal coaching ability to make these players better. You lose your starting quarterback. You lose your running back, Zach Moss. You lose Terrell Burgess, your safety to the Rams. They lost a lot of players to the draft, so they're retooling and having no practice. Arizona, you brought up, thought they were going to blow out, but Arizona was returning a lot of guys. I know they lost Khalil Tate, their quarterback. They lost their running back, but they had a sophomore. He was a freshman last year, played a few games, started, and he looked very good, Grant Gunnell. So they had guys coming back. I know they lost some defenders. They talked about it a lot in the broadcast, but they had some guys coming back. I think Utah just lost maybe too much for their first game of the season. So I like USC as well. And one thing I want to point out, Frostee, that I liked a lot from Clay Helton's press conference, and I always appreciate his press conference because a lot of coaches will kind of give you coach speak, right? They'll say, yeah, we did this good. I think Clay, he'll give you numbers. He'll tell you exactly what they did well. He talked about coming into the year, one of the things they wanted most was to rush the ball 178 yards per game. I think it was 178 yards. I remember because it wasn't like 175, wasn't 170. It was like 178, I think is what he said, which is something you don't think of because you think of, air raid offense, 4 receivers, spread them out, Keaton Slovis, 40, 50 plus yards or attempts a game, 300 yards. But the fact they're putting an onus on rushing the ball because then that will allow Slovis to open things up, which we've seen when it's mattered most in those last drives, just hasn't been, consistent early. But they've rushed it over 175 yards each game so far. So I love that that's what they're putting an onus on. And I think they'll be able to do that hopefully against this Utah defense. And Marquise Stepp, I think, looked great down the stretch. Stephen Carr looks so dynamic running the ball. I love watching the ball in his hands. And Vivai Malapai is just a battering ram, right? You can just run over anybody. So they have a great 3-headed attack. You as well as talked on your show about how each of these guys could probably be a 30-plus carry back if they're in a different system, but they're sharing the load. So for them, it's a bummer, obviously, building their future. But for this USC Trojan team, it's a great 3-headed attack. And I think that's what they'll look to is hitting that 178 mark. And as long as they hit that 178 mark, I think this team will go undefeated. Because I think if you get almost 100 yards rushing a game, you're going to be hard to beat.
And I think what Clay Helton is doing is showing everyone there's a process to what he's doing. There's a process to this team and how they want to get their results. And rushing the ball, it may not be in an I formation or with 2 tight ends and running power and counters and stuff like that. It may not be that. Maybe the zone read and RPOs and, doing it that way. But they are getting the results they want, and they are ending up on the win side of the column. Mm-hmm. So you have to give your hats off to Clay Helton. They're not doing it the way everyone else wants to do it, but they have a process to it, and they're hitting their mark. So keep doing that. You let every team know that they're trying to get 178 rushing yards, and it's on them to judge when those runs are going to come or when not. And the backs, like you just said, have played phenomenal. They're sharing the load. Each one brings something new to the game, and that's a hard thing to defend as a defender. You got Marquise, you got Bavai. These guys have been a phenomenal job of being those battering rams and running through tackles, and Stephen Carr has been lights out. And I know the Trojan fans out there are in love with Stephen Carr right now because he's healthy, he looks good, he has his shirt up, his abs are out, and he's juking people down the field. He's running. He even juked himself out of a touchdown last week versus Arizona.
Yeah.
He was running so fast. So this three-headed monster in that backfield is doing what they're sent out to do. It's just not looking the way these fans want them to look.
Yeah, but hey, it doesn't always have to look how we want as long as you win games. And
Just-
I think they're going to hit their stride. Great. I think if I'm going to have a bold take for this game,
Okay.
we've brought it up the last two games about a little bit of frustration how on these 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, it seems like they run the same play every time, right? Shotgun, running back to the right or left, and run them in between the tackles every time. So I think they're going to do that on the first 3rd and 1. And the very next one, we're going to see a deep bomb to Amon-Ra or something where there's just going to break a play wide open. I'm waiting for it.
And I think what you just said will give Clay Helton that one moment to look at the camera and give his press conference and let everyone know he hears the hate. He can't avoid hearing it. And right there, he's like, there's a process. He's setting something up.
Yeah.
He's setting up. And I think that finale, if they can go undefeated and they play Oregon, he's going to give us the game that makes it like, and that's why he's the coach.
There you go. So let's see it. So I agree with you, though. I think the Trojans go 3-0 in the season. Unless things change, I'll probably be picking them every week here on out. Just I think they're the better team, the best in this Pac-12 South, and excited for it. So let's hope, fingers crossed. Obviously, everyone's health is most important, but let's hope this game does happen. As of now, it is on track. So I haven't heard anything otherwise. So we should be good to go, and hopefully see Utah first time, see USC go to 3-0. Frostee, great show. I know we ran a little long, had a lot to get to. It's fun covering 4 teams, but it's a lot of information to get out there sometimes. So thank you, sir, for jumping on with me. And where can everyone find you at?
So you can find me at The Organic Frost, obviously, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. You can look for me at the Take Back the West podcast. I will be going live off that feed on our Instagram. So check me out Saturday, do a little Q&A before the game. Might even match up with, I think, Trojan Talk. So there you go.
Love it. There you go. Yeah. So it's Take Back the West _ on Instagram. So make sure to go follow that account. It's with us, but it's fully USC. And you'll get a lot of access to Frostee. So Take Back the West _ on Instagram. You can follow our main account at LAFB Network, and myself is at Ryan Dyrud LAFB. Thank you to Golden Road Brewery. Thank you to Bet Online. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to subscribe to the Bleav in LA Football podcast. We are everywhere you listen. Also, video platform on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't yet. Go and hit that subscribe button. Get the bell link.
Videos are awesome, by the way.
The what?
Our videos are awesome.
I think they're coming together. Learn on the fly. But I think, if you want to see what we look like and watch some cool intros and stuff and some highlights, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. So all of those at LAFB Network. Frostee, thanks as always. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great weekend. If we go 4-0 this week, let's just put this in the universe. What are we doing if we go 4-0? Are we doing like a shotgun or? Because this would be a big 4-0.
There's one lucky fan that writes in that says they believe in us. We'll send them a case.
Okay, so you'll shotgun a beer, and we'll send a case to whoever writes in.
Send a case over to one of our fans. If they write to us, email me at frosteepodcast@yahoo.com and say, I believe in you. I believe in this 4-0 for LA football, and we will send you a case if we go 4-0.
There you go. It's that easy.
It is.
And they got to go 4-0 for us to shotgun. We'll still send you a case.
Let's be real. We might shotgun it anyways, but to send a case, they got to go 4-0.
Got to go 4-0. All right. Who believes? You heard it here first. The Bleav in LA Football podcast. Enjoy the weekend, guys. We'll talk to you all next week.